there's an ecosystem that needs to be fixed in the U.S., in Greece, I apologize. This ecosystem is one of a lack of knowledge at the highest levels of what inventions are, how the invention system, what's called an invention capital system in the U.S. is, and how it works. There's a lot of confusion here, at least I'm confused as to what we're all talking about. There's some people are talking about ideas and how you monetize and commercialize these ideas. Other people are talking about other ideas that are technology focused and therefore the subject of patents, for which Greece can help. And the reason it can help because there's a European system that costs about $80,000 to $90,000 to get European protection. It costs $10,000 in the U.S. The U.S. is 45% of the world's market. Europe is 25%, and yet it costs 6 or 7 times more to get a patent in Europe with any reasonable coverage. The OV is dysfunctional. The fact that you have to deal with translations from Greek into other language. The fact that you don't have patent attorneys, and nor is there ability for me to train technologists on the law, because you're talking about the most difficult legal document that anybody can write is a patent. And yet, the people here that have dealt with lawyers, wonder why the system even exists. The U.S., for patents in the U.S. is a $1 trillion system. The U.S. is not a manufacturing country anymore. It's a services country. It takes inventions, it sells them to foreign countries, it manufactures them abroad, and that's exactly what Israel does. That's not what the rest of Europe does either. Germany, UK, they take advantage of a system that is favorable to them, because the big conglomerates like Siemens and other companies that really take advantage of their position, their subsidized industries, to keep the little guys out. Who are the little guys? All of Southern and Eastern Europe. The Israelis were smart. They understood the problem. They tackled it head on, invested in research, put in the proper stock option plans, the proper investment, and essentially the government became a VC in partnership with industry. Greece needs to do that. It needs to ignore Europe and all the political and dysfunctional aspects of it. It needs to hire American and not meet American VCs. Kleiner Perkins is an excellent. They're the top-notch probably VCs in the world, and there's probably 5 or 10 others. Those are the people you should be talking to it, and not us, including myself, possibly. My background. I've been in patents 23 years. I've managed hundreds of lawyers for a company called Qualcomm. Qualcomm has 10,000 people. It brings in about $1 billion in revenue off of its 30,000 patents, of which the 30,000 patents really translates into about, maybe 5,000 inventions, because you have all the foreign filings and all of that. A patent invention costs $200,000 to $300,000 for reasonable global coverage. That's not realistic for a small inventor, or even for a small Greek company, without the backing of government. And by the backing of government, a PPP of some sort, a public-private partnership, where the government participates with the intent of making this money back. It can't put in $1 million or $2 million. It's not going to work. It has to put in the hundreds of millions of dollars that the Israelis have put in, that the American companies put in through their universities, that the Qualcomms of the world that has almost $1 billion venture that goes out and sucks up companies like Greek companies. But it looks at Greek companies, they have seasonal patent portfolio, seasonal patent position. All of us talk about things when we don't understand the business of patents, and the fact that the business of patents and innovation and technology innovation is separate from, you have the patent, what do you do with it? Well, you start a company. Is Greece the right infrastructure to start that company? Maybe it is, maybe it's not, okay? But Greece needs to work first on developing the infrastructure, meaning understanding intellectual property law, which the framework of intellectual property law is not understood by Greeks, by Greek companies, by Greek government. It needs to understand what that is. It needs to put the right people and policies in place to effectuate that and to capitalize on Greece's most important capital after tourism. It's people. We have the most educated workforce per capita any country in the world. It's ridiculous that we're not investing in that. If I just, if you can sense my ignorance, I'm a proud Greek. And I've succeeded. I mean, like I said, I was vice president of Qualcomm. The company works like a VC, and it does what it does. And what's lacking in Greece is an understanding of concepts. You need people that are the right advisors. What is a patent attorney? I'm an electrical engineer. Then I'm a lawyer. You can't be anything. You know, if you're not a scientist, you're not a patent attorney. So somebody holds himself as a lawyer who's not a scientist, he's not a patent attorney. And all of Europe does not have patent attorneys, and it's this huge scam that goes around Europe where people hold themselves out as European patent attorneys without legal training. And write the most difficult. You need to bring in the concept of patent attorneys from the US. You need to enlist them, you need to partner with them, and you need to make sure that they're protecting the intellectual property of the brilliant people in this room, and they're in the universities and the students that work for them. You need to incentivize through stock option plans. These 20% withholding stuff is silly. VAT is silly. Okay, it doesn't happen in countries like Israel. It doesn't happen in countries like US. Why are we doing it? It's counterproductive. It's destructive to companies. It's destructive to a law firm when a client comes in and says, you know, this is what I charge, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, but you know, that's reasonable and it's half the price, but I refuse to pay 23% VAT, so I'm not going to file a patent. It's something trivial like that just completely impacts the ecosystem. So there's an ecosystem of innovation. Some of it is patentable, some of it is not. The non-patentable stuff would be video games, which is $1 billion industry, and if the government invested in video games alone, the return on its investment will be 100-fold.